Welcome to the Darkstream 10K. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and Arbitration Warrior, for lack of a better term. I'm not used to this particular screen. How do we do this here? There we go. Okay. So, bombs away it is. Tonight, we're going to talk about a couple different things. Obviously, we're going to talk a bit about, just a little bit about the wall and the claims that the Trump administration is not going to build the wall. As always, I encourage you to take 2 days. Anytime Trump says something that gets you worried, worked up, paranoid, whatever, take 2 days before you react. Don't get excited about it, because nobody head fakes more predictably or better than the God Emperor Donald Trump. Question: so is the Jordan Peterson thing controlled opposition or what? Absolutely. Jordan Peterson is controlled opposition. Ben Shapiro is controlled opposition. Both of them are media creatures. They're not even media whores like Joe Rogan. Both of them are literally the creatures of other people who made them popular. Jordan Peterson even talks about this. The foreword to his book, 12 Rules of Life, is written by the guy who explains why he selected Peterson to become a media figure. Controlled or approved? Both. Embrace the healing power of there are some who are approved. There are some who are controlled and approved. And so, they talk about Hollywood created little Ben. That's not true. Ben was created when he was a kid. Ben Shapiro was groomed for a career in the media by his father. And that's why he was set up as a child prodigy early on. Somebody notes that YouTube keeps trying to push Joe Rogan interviewing Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I'm betting they're not pushing the interview where Peterson talks about how he didn't sleep for 25 days. Jordan Peterson is Grima Wormtongue. There's no question about it whatsoever. So let's talk about what we are. I'll have to tell my wife that, except for I don't think she has any idea what Lin-Manuel Miranda looks like. Sorry, there's just a comment saying, has anyone ever said you remind them of a hotter, straight Lin-Manuel Miranda? I don't really know what he looks like, so my sympathies to him. Anyhow, so first, shout out to the VFM, shout out to the ilk, to the Dread Ilk, the whole evil legion of evil, and of course, the Bears. I was on Alex Jones today. That was a last minute thing. I didn't even have time to mention it on the blog ahead of time. Apparently, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out on Shapiro soon. I was a little bit startled by some of the stuff that they're talking about, and so not the stuff that Alex was talking about openly, but some of the stuff that people are talking about behind the scenes, and so it's not good. I mean, to say that he is not a genuine conservative. To say that he's not genuinely what he tries to present himself as being is really, kind of, wrong way. It's really kind of putting it mildly. So let's talk about what I mean by bombs away. Bombs away refers to our response, Archaven's response to Indiegogo's deplatforming of us in October. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our response to it so that you can understand how outrageous, how egregious this behavior was and how we're going to hold them accountable. First thing I want to know is how many of you are backers, are any of you Alt Hero Q backers who did not opt out? Who did not opt out? So answer me that question if you can, if you don't mind. Anyhow, what happened is that we created a crowdfunding campaign. We set it with a $50,000 goal, and we managed to meet that goal within 3 days. And so a couple of folks are answering they did. They are backers. Now here's the interesting thing. If you don't remember whether you did or did not opt out, you didn't opt out. Okay. The interesting thing is that there is the distinct possibility that those who couldn't opt out have the opportunity and the ability to break Indiegogo for good. And I'll explain why when we get to the end. Anyhow, we raised over $100,000 on the campaign. During the campaign, Archaven had to supply the various financial information. All of it checked out, no problem. Then on September 26th, Archaven was informed that Indiegogo was going to pay the entire amount on or about September 28th. That did not happen. And then on October 11th, Indiegogo support sent an email saying that Archaven's account had been frozen due to unspecified unusual activity, and said that no contributions or campaign disbursements can be processed. They said that they were starting a review process and said that they might need to get more information from us. Now, that all sounded kind of interesting, right? But what was even more interesting was that 18 minutes later, 18 minutes after stating that they were starting a review process, they contacted all 1,436 backers and told them that the campaign has been closed by Trust and Safety due to a violation of the terms of use. And they actually put that notice up publicly. It's still up there. You can see it on the campaign now. So their review process took 18 minutes. Then they refunded all the backers and announced to us the next day that they appreciate our cooperation throughout the review process. Unfortunately, after reviewing your campaign and campaign activity, we've determined that it's too risky to continue raising funds through Indiegogo. And they canceled the campaign, etc., etc. Now, here's what's interesting is several other independent comics creators, including Ethan Van Sciver, contacted Indiegogo because they were concerned about their own campaigns. They wanted to find out what was happening. And they received different stories, but one of them, which we have in writing, specifically accused us of committing money laundering. Now, this was an absolutely ludicrous charge, an absolutely ridiculous charge. But more importantly, it is a charge of criminal activity. It's a charge of criminal activity that goes two ways. Moreover, it is totally defamatory, and that is not legal. So what's interesting then is, and keep in mind, we've got this in writing. We've got all of this in black and white. Now, the really interesting thing, here's what's really fascinating. Remember, they shut down the campaign because they said we violated their terms of use. But here's some of the language from their terms of use. Be truthful. Don't post information you know is false, misleading, or inaccurate. Don't do anything deceptive or fraudulent. Guess who did? Not us, but Indiegogo. Section 2F, respect the rights of others. You may not threaten, abuse, harass, defame, or engage in behavior that is libelous, tortious, obscene, profane, or invasive of another person's privacy. And so then you go here and you see that Indiegogo posted information they know is false, misleading, and inaccurate. Their behavior was fraudulent. Then they further violated their own terms of use. This was absolutely hysterical. Okay? This is in Section 3B, where they say they have the right to withhold funds and stop the disbursement of contributions to a campaign. Disbursement of contributions to a campaign may be delayed or withheld in their entirety for a number of reasons, including but not limited to refunds, chargeback options, frauds, violations of the terms of use, or any other policy or any other situation where Indiegogo determines that contributions should not be dispersed in its sole discretion. So they say we can do whatever we want. Then they say we do not endorse any user content, blah, blah, blah. We do not pre-screen or endorse any user content. We may remove user content or discretion, blah, blah, blah. They go on. We do not communicate our reasons for removing or keeping user content on the site. Okay? So they don't expose any of this stuff, right? Then Section 11A, we have the right to monitor, terminate, suspend, or delete any user account at any time for any reason or no reason. It is our policy not to comment on any reasons for termination, and we have no obligation to provide you with a but they did comment on it. They specifically commented on it several times. They implied it. They implied money laundering, unusual activity. They made the direct accusation of money laundering to people in the comics industry. And so, their actions, unlike us, were in direct violation of their own terms of use. And so we pointed that out. And so what we are going after them for is both the money that they owe us. We're also going after them for the defamation they committed when they emailed all of our backers. We're also going for the incidents of defamation to people in the comics industry, some of which we have proof of. Other incidents we have reason to believe they happened, and we're going to have to look into discovery and so forth. Now here's where it gets interesting. We are not the only ones bringing claims against them in this arbitration process, because money laundering takes two parties. You can't launder money yourself. So when they accuse us of using these campaigns to launder money, that means they just defamed every single backer that supported us. Every single one. And so this is not a lawsuit. As users of the Indiegogo site, we are required by their terms of use to use a specific arbitration system. This is what we've been working on for a while. Now here's where it gets a little bit technical. So bear with me. The arbitration system requires you to do a claim, and it costs $250 to file it. Now, what Indiegogo has done is they have asserted in the terms of use that you cannot bring a class action claim unless you opt out. So the 200 or so people who opted out are currently in the process of putting together their claim. Ours is already done. Ours has already gone in, or going in. The backers, the 200 backers who opted out, are putting together their claim. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Indiegogo, in their terms of use, promise or guarantees that they will pay the entire cost of the arbitration except for the initial $250 filing fee. So we have 1,236 backers who did not opt out. That doesn't mean that they can't bring an arbitration claim. It means that they have to bring one on their own. Now, they don't have to all be at the same time. They have to all be done before October of next year. But here's where it gets interesting. How much does it cost to do an arbitration? Well, the normal fee is $1,500. It's marked down to $250. The company that the consumer is dealing with has to pay for the rest. Plus, they also have to pay for the arbitrator's fees. So let's say that you're talking about a total cost of $3,000 for a relatively simple arbitration claim. Multiply 3,000 by 1,250 just to keep it simple. What does that add up to? Somebody do the math. 3,000 times 1,250. Anyone got it yet? So, what that means is that even without any penalties, even if they win, they would have to fork out between 3 and 4 million if each of our backers wanted to support that. And so now obviously not everybody is in a position to spend $250 because they, when they sponsored something for $25. But the point is that because of what Indiegogo did, and they are not, we've looked into their financial position, they're not in a position to shell out $4 million in legal fees. And so this is not something that we want the non-opt-out backers to do yet, but we want you guys to be aware of the option, and we might want to have 2 or 3 of you who are willing to take the lead on it to go ahead and do this, because what's going to happen is most likely it will make sense for them to try to to relax their objection to class action and allow everybody to do it. Allow all 1,436 backers to join in the backer class action claim if they wish. Because it's really up to Indiegogo. If Indiegogo wants to try to defend all of these separate 1,236 arbitration claims and spend the money defending them, then they could, they can choose to do that. But I cannot believe that they would, simply because it would cost so much. So, could a court force us to pay their fees if the case is found to be frivolous? No, because this is not a court. This is a arbitration, and the rules for the arbitration are already laid out in Indiegogo's terms of use. They are already committed to paying for all of the costs except for the initial $250. Kate says, will you take donations to help those who want to arbitrate? That is something that we will have to consider and talk about. That's an obvious potential solution. Ironically, another potential solution would be, because our claim is going first, we would theoretically have the option to beat them in arbitration and then help support those backers who don't have the $250 to file their own claim. And so anyhow, this is a system that they set up. They created this system. Personally, I think it would be hilarious to start a Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign for doing arbitration against Indiegogo, but I'm pretty sure that they would shut that one down real fast. Anyhow, we don't mind talking about this stuff openly because we've just sent all of this information directly to Indiegogo. And, just like with the Hugos, all we're doing is applying their rules of their game. And so, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see if the arbitration, or if the arbitrator is going to allow them to get away with this egregious behavior, this complete violation of the law, or not of the law, but this complete violation of the defamation, the libel, the slander, the violation of their own terms of use. And so, if you're a original Alt Hero Q backer who did not opt out, and you are willing to put $250 into this, go ahead and email me. You don't have to do anything yet. Just let me know so that I'll know that we have X number of people available to, shall we say, fire a shot or two across the bow. Are you going to email all your backers with this info when the time is right? Yes, we're going to do that very soon. Yes, Jay, this is live. And Gordon says they picked the wrong targets. Well, they did, absolutely. And what's even more significant is that the woman who we believe to be the individual primarily responsible for the freezing of the account and the cancellation of the campaign and the and the refunding of the contributions is Carrie Barker, who left the company weeks after this happened. And so I don't think that they're... I find it very difficult to believe that Indiegogo is going to want to try to fight this to the bitter end. They already have their scapegoat. They already know who is responsible. And given the time frame that it happened in, I mean, look, we know this happened in response to the Bleeding Cool article that appeared that morning. So the article comes out the morning. The decision is made. The first email is sent out to us, and 18 minutes later, the first refunds begin. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the management was probably not directly involved. It tells us that the legal counsel was almost certainly not involved. You know, you can't even get your lawyer to talk to you usually within a day, let alone review a 17,000 word interview and give approval in 18 minutes. And so this is going to be interesting, but this has the potential, just so you understand, this does have the potential to do to Indiegogo what Hulk Hogan did to Gawker. And, we are going to, pursue this ruthlessly and mercilessly. We're always willing to be reasonable to talk to people who come to us and say, look, we screwed up. What can we do? But they haven't talked to us. They haven't made any overtures. And if they don't, it's bombs away. We've already dropped the first bomb, and there will be more. There may be hundreds more. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Somebody said, what's the most likely outcome? It's impossible to say. I have seen a corporation that had the ability to make something go away, to make a problem go away with a letter, end up paying $250,000 2 years later because they were too stubborn and proud to write the letter. So we had to go after them legally. They ended up settling the day before we actually went to court. Now this is a little bit different because it's an arbitration situation, and so it'll be very, very interesting to see how this shakes out. But we've got nothing to hide. We absolutely and unequivocally deny their slander and libel concerning us or any of our backers committing any money laundering whatsoever. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this goes. Somebody asked, would I consider going after the individual who committed the libel and slander personally? Well, that would not be an arbitration. That would be a legal matter. I would be hesitant to do that unless I was working with a California attorney who was willing to do it on some sort of not ad hoc basis, but the usual profit sharing or whatever you call it. I mean, I'm not interested in. I don't have the time or the wherewithal to chase stuff like that when you just have no idea what the outcome is. Now, that of course may depend upon what what we learn. We may find that the defamation that they committed was considerably worse than we imagined. We don't know. We have no idea. All we know is that there is at least one provable incident of it that we know for certain we can prove. And then there's also the defamation as related to the backers. Pro bono, yeah, that's it. Or contingency. Will you be deleting this stream in case it somehow prejudices the arbitration? No, why would this prejudice anything? These are my opinions. I am free to speak about my opinions. And so, there's no reason. Part of the reason that I'm sharing all this information is because once the arbitration happens, then and if a settlement happens, then we might not be able to talk about it, and you guys might not be able to know what happened. Now you know exactly what's going on, and I expect that you are, at least most of you, are smart enough to be able to correctly determine what happened from the consequences that you see. And so, since this is a defamation case, maybe they can get the Anti-Defamation League to back it. That would be hilarious. And so we'll just have to see how this all shakes out. And it's entirely possible that none of the facts will matter, that no matter what they've done, the arbitrator just decides they can do whatever they want, and I'm going to let them. I suspect that would be really bad for their reputation as a neutral party, but that's a possibility too. But even that would be a win of sorts, because what it would demonstrate to absolutely everyone is that you cannot possibly work with a company like that. This is, what do they call it? I want to say Xenon Gambit, but that's not right. This is a win-win situation for us. Either we win, or we win bigger, or we eliminate them. Those are the three possibilities. There's a question about are EVS and Nick going after you? No, not at all. I had a great conversation with Nick Rakita the other night. In fact, I owe him one, and I'm actually going to appear on his live stream in the near future, even though, as you know, I don't generally do that anymore. But we had a very good conversation. We may disagree on a few things with regards to, our legal opinions, our opinions about trademark and copyright law. But we might even talk about that on the stream when I visit. Nick is not and has never been the enemy. Even Ethan Van Sciver, for all of our differences of opinion and mutual distaste for each other, he's not, Xanatos Gambit, thank you. He's not the enemy either. So it's one thing that you'll understand is that it's very, very important to be able to distinguish your enemies from your rivals, from people that you just might happen to have a disagreement or two with. And so it's not let's see. EVS was sensually massaging Micah Curtis's channel earlier, though. What does though mean? Ethan can sensually massage anyone or anything he likes. I don't care. I mean, Ethan's personality being what it is, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he occasionally had the desire to make friends with people who don't like me very much. I mean, I'm not even sure who Micah Curtis is, to be honest with you. So anyhow, but the point is that just because somebody doesn't like you, just because somebody criticizes you, even if they badmouth you and lie about you, that doesn't make them your enemy. An enemy is somebody who actually tries to materially harm you. A little bit of sniping and bitching here and there is totally irrelevant. So, so let's see here. Let's take some questions before we go. First of all, thank you all for subscribing. We hit 10K. That's cool. It would be fun to hit 40K just so we can talk about Darkstream 40K. We'll see how long YouTube allows this channel to survive. There's it wouldn't surprise me at all if nothing surprised me about these social media companies. Jean Durtel says, hasn't EVS tried to harm you? In petty ways. I mean, you got to keep in mind, people trying to discredit me or trying to disqualify me or just, bad-mouthing me in general is so common and so old that I really don't even pay much attention to it. You got to keep in mind, I was targeted by email blast by the Council on American Islamic Relations back in 2001. That was 17 years ago. One YouTuber, however popular, trying to sick his sycophants on me to call me names is not only not going to make me cry and is not only not going to upset me, it's totally irrelevant. It didn't bother me at the time. It doesn't bother me now. I mean, I feel sorry for people like Owen, for whom this kind of thing is new. It can be a shock when you first get mass assaulted that way. But once it happens 2 or 3 times, then, you realize that doesn't harm me at all. Your credibility is always going to be your reliability over time. It's not about whether somebody believes something that somebody else said about you or not. Many, many, many people believe things that are entirely false about me. And so be it. I'm not concerned about that. How do you explain without being arrogant that you think about things on a much deeper level than someone of lesser intelligence? Well, I keep it simple. I call it Vox's first law. Any sufficiently advanced intelligence is indistinguishable from insanity. I just draw connections that I see, and people think I'm crazy because they don't see them. That's how Jordan Peterson gets away with his whole baffle garble thing is that he just talks about 2 or 3 or 4 different things as if they're connected, or as if they're meaningfully connected. But when you understand what he's doing, you can see that he's just basically drawing thematic tangents. There's no actual deep meaning to it. But if you're accustomed to people kind of talking over your head and drawing connections that you don't see, you find yourself nodding along and thinking, oh, wow, that's amazing. That's really wise. It's total bullshit. But not everybody can see through it. It's very easy for me to see through it because, I'm, around or above the level of intelligence that Jordan Peterson has. And so it's very easy for me to see what he's doing. It's not easy for somebody who's got maybe a 110 IQ. They see the dots that he's connecting, and they don't realize that those dots don't actually connect. They don't have the ability to see that the connection he's drawing is either false or trivial. Why would you admit autism if you don't actually know you have it? Because people like to be victims and they like to have an excuse for their actions. Recently read your interview with John Romero. What would you classify him and Carmack as, and why do you think their relationship at ID eventually fell apart? Well, they were just very different people. They came together and put out some amazing stuff. I have tremendous respect for both of them. I've spoken to both of them on a number of occasions. They are 2 of the computer gaming greats of all time. But they had different visions and went in different directions. There's nothing wrong with that. I got under Peterson's spell because I'm not well read and rely on audio video. Yeah, well, that's I describe that in the book. I talk about that in Jordanetics. I'll pop that up here, by the way. It was actually pretty cool to see Alex Jones showing the paperback of Jordanetics. I haven't even gotten my copy yet. I would, show it to you if I had it, but I don't. So I haven't even seen it. So anyhow, let's see here. So gammas can be higher intelligence as well as midwits. Certainly. Gammas are, on the average, more intelligent than the average. Obviously there's a lot more midwits that are gammas than highly intelligent, for the obvious reason that there's just a lot more midwits, period. So, hello from China. Hello, China. Let's see. Yeah, Carrie Barker is now at Google. That's interesting. It'd be kind of interesting if they threw her a bone to reward her for trying to make my life difficult. I'm not that paranoid. I tend to doubt that. Alex loves you. Are you going back on InfoWars? I have no idea. If he invites me and it's a topic that I have something to say about, yes. They're a retail outlet for our books. Obviously, I'm going to demonstrate my appreciation for that. I decline invitations there regularly, just like I decline invitations to places like the CCTV or whatever that Chinese channel is called, because I don't feel like I have anything to say about certain subjects. They have their subject that they're going to discuss. Sure, I could go on and bullshit about it if I wanted to. I'm sure I could do so convincingly on a regular basis, but that's of no interest to me. Why would I want to bullshit about stuff I really don't know anything about? Why do so many people not recognize SJW convergence in companies like Patreon and instead believe these companies are legitimately moved by a few articles by activist journos? Because most people are really bad at pattern recognition. Pattern recognition on an intellectual level is highly correlated with intelligence. And so you have to be intelligent enough to recognize the patterns. Also, they don't want to recognize the patterns because once they recognize it, then they feel like they have to do something about it. And most people don't want to do it. They don't want to stop buying from Amazon. They don't want to give up their Gmail account. They don't want to shut down their Facebook account. They don't want to get off Twitter, even though they know they shouldn't. It's easier to put your head in the sand and just pretend that the problem is not there than accept the problem and then feel the imperative to do something about it. As a mother, can I do anything to persuade my sons to be alphas? You can't persuade them to be alphas, but what you can do is you can stop encouraging them to become gammas. So encourage them to tell the truth. Don't try to tear them down. Show them respect when they behave in a manner that merits respect. Point out models to them. You can explain this stuff all you want. You can understand this stuff all you want. It's not going to change what you are. If you're not a natural alpha, you'll never be an alpha, most likely. But you can, improve your behavioral patterns. Who is my favorite general? I'm very partial to Caesar. I particularly liked the way that he was willing to risk himself in battle and use the risk to himself as a way to boost his morale. I also have a particular I have a particular liking for his particular affection for the 10th Legion. It's kind of like how I feel about the VFM. You just have this level of trust in this body of people, this body of men, although there are female VFM, of course. You just have a certain trust in them that you don't have in other people. And I think I understand just on a small level how that relationship worked. It's really fascinating. Another general that I like is Fabius Maximus, the Delayer. The way that he understood that he did not want to go toe-to-toe with Hannibal Barca, and the way that he managed to use logistics and time to defeat a general that he could not defeat on the battlefield. I think that's pretty fascinating. Wouldn't America have to change at the constitutional level to break into true nations? Yes, probably. Howard Stern was persecuted for years, and he's an SJW cuck now. This demonstrates the will that PC culture has turned Stern. I think Stern was always a SJW cuck. He's basically he's basically the image of a Jewish pornographer. He was never a staunch voice for God, country, and Jesus Christ. You can't cuck when you're already an enemy. Do you speed read? Yes. If so, what is your method? I have no idea. I've always done it naturally. I timed it once. It was timed for me when I was a kid, and I timed it again, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago or something, but Most people don't believe how fast I read, and they really don't believe. They definitely don't believe my level of retention at that reading speed. I remember when, I think it was like in 5th grade, they did the test at my elementary school, and they made me do the test 3 times. And I think that, if I recall correctly, they even like devised a special version of it because they assumed that I had to have read the stuff on the test before. And because they couldn't believe the combination of the speed with the retention. The funny thing is, my best friend also read like that, but he was so frustrated by blowing through his books so fast, by ripping through them so fast, that he actually taught himself how to read slowly. And it kind of backfired on him because he can't speed read now. You know, he tried to learn how to pick it up again in college, and he couldn't do it. So that was kind of ironic. Have you seen how obstinate the circuit courts around the U.S. have been with Antifa violence? Oh yeah, they're totally protecting Antifa, no question. Would bitcoins be a good store of value for the upcoming American economic crisis? I'm dubious about that. Hey, I've got some electricity. Was Hannibal a good general? Yes, he was an incredible general. I mean, he was, so speed reading is natural for those of high intelligence. They don't have to learn it to do it. Well, I'm not an expert on it. All I know is that myself and my best friend, who is actually a little bit smarter than I am, we were both natural speed readers. And we both also started reading at 3. So there may be also a connection to reading at a very young age, although I think that reading at a very young age is also tends to be associated with intelligence. So who knows? There is no government or rule of law anymore. Well, there is government. The problem is it's bad government and often illegitimate government, but there certainly is not a rule of law. We're back to the rule of man rather than the rule of law. Are VPNs a scam? I don't think so. Even though Sigmas are less prone to psychological problems, are they able to get them? I would assume so. I've never been depressed. I've never had any significant psychological issues of which I'm aware. But I don't see why I would be, or any Sigma would be, totally incapable of that sort of thing. Is the rhetoric dialectic divide why I get absolutely incomprehensible responses to many of my usually dialectic arguments? Yes. You need to understand that rhetoric and dialectic are different languages. There is no actual information content in rhetoric. Dialectic is only about the informational content. So you are doing the equivalent of speaking English to somebody who only speaks Chinese, and they're speaking Chinese back to you, and you're not understanding what they're saying either. That's the big thing that the people who speak dialectic don't seem to get. You sound just as stupid to them as they sound to you. Do you have a photographic memory? No, I usually don't know what day it is. I do have a weirdly good memory for anything I've ever read. Like, I won't remember what the quote said exactly, but I can pick up a book and go to more or less the right spot and find it very quickly. It's a totally useless skill in the age of Google, but it's kind of bizarre how it works even if I read the book electronically. So there's no actual physical sense of where in the book it is. But even if I've read it electronically, for some reason, I can translate that to where in the book it should be. So it's kind of funny. Let's see. Advice for younger generation, financial and otherwise. Always maintain multiple revenue streams. Always save, if you're young, always save at least 30% of your income. And don't get caught up in get-rich schemes. When looking for a wife, what is more important, same race or her being a virgin? I would say same race, most likely. The cultural differences are going to get you a lot sooner than a bit of sexual experience. What day is it, Vox? I actually have to stop and think about it because it's after midnight. I think it's Wednesday. I have no idea what the date is. Let's see. Befriended a hot, nice female. Looked on social media and she was Antifa in Charlottesville. Can she change? Can she be saved? Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing about women is that they tend to be malleable. They tend to gravitate to the ideology and the beliefs of the men with whom they associate. But you have to be the leader in the relationship. If you're not the leader in the relationship, that will not happen. So, you need to be cautious, or you need to be very genuine with yourself. And if you are the kind of person who is going to give in to the other person, it's not going to work. Will your book be translated into Spanish or Italian? If you're talking about Jordanetics, I don't know. I don't have any plans to do so. If somebody wants to, go ahead. Do you still have hope for Trump vis-a-vis the wall and draining the swamp? Something's fizzled. I have hope. I haven't given up hope. There are people who still insist that, there's going to be martial law in the United States before January 1st, and the swamp will be drained and the wall will be built, and that would be great. I don't expect that to happen, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility. How will the Mike Flynn situation play out? I have no idea. Have you noticed the trad thoughts uprising? Cam whores are virtuous signaling to the right, calling themselves conservative and family oriented. That's right, because those are where all the men that are desirable are. They don't want to, marry these pansy gamma male feminists. They have no interest in them whatsoever. So they're trying to appeal to the desirable men. That's normal. But once they come over, it's your job to keep them following you. The problem with men is that they're stupid. The minute that a woman shows them any attention, they stop doing what they're doing and they just turn into this, whatever you want, honey. Women, of course women have contempt for that. How can they not? How's the dog been doing? He had a pretty good day today, actually. This morning was not good, but apparently he ate quite well, and he was actually in a pretty good mood tonight. So, hopefully his odds are increasing. Would you do a Darkstream or blog post about rhetoric that the left uses that is most effective and how to counter it? It's not a bad idea. A Darkstream might actually be more, or a Voxiversity might be more to the point. Would you ever use a Patreon alternative created by Jordan Peterson? I would be very tempted to, just to see how long it took for them to kick me off. Can you make all comics available for purchase digitally on arkhavencomics.com? I prefer to buy on your site over Amazon. Absolutely. We're in the process of doing that. Quite a few of them are already up there. We are pulling everything out of Kindle Select. Everything that we have will eventually be for sale on Arkhaven Comics. We're even working on getting some of the audiobooks up there. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll be able to get them switched from exclusive to non-exclusive, the books that have been up there for a while, but we're gonna talk to them about that and see. Let's see. They say Faith Goldie is already banned on there. Yeah, well, anyhow, Well, I don't know. How can it be banned on there? It doesn't exist yet. So I think that's an exaggeration. Anyhow, I got to roll. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great evening, and we will keep you as informed as things proceed. Have a good evening.